Genghis Khan might be the greatest military strategist of all time. He's certainly top 10. He conquered more land and people in 25 years than the Romans did in 400. And he did a lot of things that no other ruler ever did. So in this episode, we're breaking down 5 unique strategies that led to his success. And note, this might get a little graphic, so if you get grossed out or upset easily, this probably isn't for you. Obviously, Genghis Khan did a lot of horrible things, but he also grew his empire faster than anyone else in history. So today we're going to look at how he was able to do that. If you're new here, this is where I make the videos that I wish existed about great warriors and leaders. It's a combo of history and philosophy, breaking down the non-obvious things that these warriors did to win. Today, we'll start in a different time period. When a medieval army invaded an enemy in the 1500s, as they captured the city, they would often gather up the king and the top generals and imprison or execute them. The thinking was if you take out the enemy leaders, the rest of the city will fall. But when Genghis Khan invades, he does the complete opposite. He actually goes out in search of the greatest military leaders that the enemy has, and then adopts them into his own army as high-ranking officials. And I guess adopts is a bit of a kind word here. He more just says, do this or we'll kill you. But he still did it. And there's even a story of this Chinese general who shot out Genghis Khan's horse from underneath him, killed the horse. And when the Mongols went in, they found him and they brought this guy to Genghis Khan. He admitted what he had done, which bold move. It said, you can kill me, but if you don't kill me, I will serve you loyally for the rest of my life. And Genghis Khan recognized that loyalty and brought this guy in, and he became one of the top generals that Genghis Khan ever had. His name was Jeppe. So lesson number 1 is learn from your enemies. Who are the people who you hate or annoy you or make you cringe that you could be learning something from? Because there's at least one thing they do well, even if you disagree with everything else. And as you know about me, I'm huge on examples. So here's a big list of some real world examples of quote unquote enemies and the things that you could learn from them. Pause the video if you want to look at that. In 2008, one of the greatest investors of all time, Paul Graham, is giving a speech to startups. And he was talking about how to start a startup in a bad economy. Again, this is 2008, there's a recession. And he says, fortunately, the way to make a startup recession-proof is to do exactly what you should do anyways. Run it as cheaply as possible. For years, I've been telling founders that the surest route to success is to be the cockroaches of the corporate world. The immediate cause of death in a startup is always running out of money. So the cheaper your company is to operate, the harder it is to kill. And 800 years earlier, Genghis Khan was applying the same principles. When most armies laid siege to a city, they would bring a bulk amount of food, a supply train, with them to last throughout the siege. But sometimes they underestimated how long a siege would take, or just got extra hungry, and it would become a battle of which side could outlast the other with rations. Meaning sometimes the sieging army would have to give up, not because they were losing tactically, but because all of their men were starving to death. But the Mongols grew up as nomadic hunter-gatherers, and even as their wealth grew, Genghis made sure that they were always able to live off the land. When they would go to siege, they didn't need bulk rations because they would travel in lean packs and bring herds of animals with them, and they could live off of the land indefinitely. As a result, the Mongols were hard to kill. When they laid siege to your city, you knew you couldn't outlast them, and this broke people's wills. So lesson number 2 is be hard to kill. Not literally, although that would be cool too, but this means being able to survive with the bare minimum, no matter what, so you can always keep going. Let's do a quiz. So imagine that you are a scout for an army, not a modern one, some historical one. One day you look outside your city walls and you see an army approaching. Which historical army would you least want to see? In other words, which one would you be most terrified to have coming to invade you? A, the American Revolutionary War Army. 2, the French Army from World War II. 3, Genghis Khan and the Mongols. 4, the Knights Crusade. If you're like most people, you will probably pick C, the Mongols, because you have an image in your mind of what they would do to your city. The other armies listed were powerful, excluding the French, of course, but they just didn't level entire civilizations like the Mongols did. The Mongols were terrifying. Or at least that's certainly the image that people have of them. And that image worked to the Mongols' advantage. In Central Asia, there were many cities where, as the Mongols were approaching, the kingdom would immediately surrender because they had heard rumors of what the Mongols would do to them. And in fact, when they were massacring a city, the Mongols would strategically let a few people live so that they could spread the rumors. Essentially, they were so feared they could just avoid battles by their name alone. So lesson 3 is to be aware of the image that you present. And for most people, this isn't going to be like the Mongols where you want to be feared by everyone. Maybe, but probably not. I think the best way to think about this is in the opportunities that people will present to you and the people that others will introduce you to. So for example, if you love AI programming and your goal is to start an AI company, tell people about that. Become the AI guy. Because then when someone hears about a job opening at OpenAI or a VC who funds early stage AI companies, they're immediately going to think of you. They're going to go, oh, there's that AI guy that I was talking to. I should make this connection. But if you don't have that image, if you never talk about that to anyone, if you just keep it in your head, then they have no idea who you are or what you like. So those opportunities pass you by. Again, here's more examples. One of the mistakes that I made a lot early on in my career is I would apply to a job and say something like, hey, I don't have a ton of skills yet, but I'm a quick learner and I'm really hardworking. And what I learned is that that only works for the weaker jobs, because the better jobs can't hire you just because you're a hard worker. Everyone there is a hard worker, otherwise they wouldn't be there. Instead, you gotta have attributes. You gotta have specific skills. If they're having issues running Facebook ads, they need someone who has the specific skill of running Facebook ads, not someone who's just gonna try to figure it out. And Genghis Khan and the Mongols had specific skills. In particular, they were more skilled at archery on horseback than probably any army before them and any army since. They were incredibly good. They started training their children at like 3 to 5 years old to ride horses and shoot bows. And as they were growing up, this is all that the Mongol kids would do. It's said that they could shoot 3 arrows in under 2 seconds. And if you're wondering how that's possible, they would hold multiple arrows in one hand and just rapid fire. Sometimes as they're riding into battle, they would hang their arms around the neck of their horse, drop down on the side, so they're essentially using their horse as a shield, and then from below the horse's neck, they would shoot their bow and arrow. That's all while the horse is riding. Like, it was insane what they could do. It was insane. And this skill allowed them to conquer armies that were 10 times their size. So lesson number 4 is develop a few key specific skills. In whatever field you want to be in, get good at 1 or 2 or 3 things that are going to take you to success. For examples, this is going to vary a lot, but I'll list a couple ones that are helpful in any field. This last lesson comes with an asterisk because although it can lead to a lot of success in one area, it often requires sacrifices in other areas. And that's that Genghis Khan, more than probably any other ruler ever besides maybe Alexander the Great, ran with a growth at all costs strategy. Everything was about growth. How can we take over more land, more people? Whereas when George Washington beat the British, he said, okay, that's good enough. Genghis Khan always saw it bigger and better. So now he went down in history as one of the greatest conquerors of all time. But let's run through a list of other things that he had to go through to get there. First, he killed his half-brother when he was a child to take power from him. He sent one of his armies into a war with China that would last multiple decades and resulted in huge casualties. He burned down entire cities and beheaded hundreds of thousands of people in a day. And he had to go through a brutal childhood where he was basically a peasant, like the lowest level in Mongol society. But he also brought wealth and prosperity to his people, so there's that. And for me, the key takeaway here isn't the ruthless tactics. I don't think most people are going to be applying that. But instead, it's the decisive focus on growth. I think a lot of people have a goal of growing something. Could be a business, a social media following, your career, but it's easy to lose sight of that. And there's a million sayings for this. You know, you get what you focus on, what gets measured gets managed. You can't hit a target you don't aim at, things like that. So the key takeaway is reset every once in a while to focus on growth if that is your goal. And remember, this is what I'm focusing on. This is what I want to hit, and that will help you to do it.